Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing great. How about you, Eric?
Fantastic. We are well into nice summer weather. It's beautiful here in New England.
Yep, looking great. The yard's looking awesome. Flowers all over the place. Good stuff. Love this time of year.
And this year we actually managed to have a spring. For the last couple of years, we've pretty much just gone from winter right to summer. But this year we actually had a spring, so things are really nice out.
Yep, absolutely.
So today we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're actually putting together some topics because we're going to talk a little bit about branding. But specifically what we're going to talk about is authenticity in branding and how being your authentic self and, quite frankly, good old-fashioned truth in advertising is so crucial to promoting yourself, your business, your services, your products. It really is important. And yet, there are a lot of people out there that kind of skirt the line. You know, what they're posting is technically true and yet still very misleading. So we're going to talk about things like this and why you really do need to be straightforward in your promotions. Because the fact of the matter is, at some point, your customers are going to call you on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously now when there's so many different ways to promote yourself and develop business, there's a lot of different ways that you can try and bend things. However, as you're saying, if you are not doing it the right way, things are going to catch up with you, because the bottom line is it doesn't matter whether you're my age or whether you are a millennial. You're looking for honesty, you're looking for integrity in people, and that is something that hasn't and never will change.
Exactly. You know, people want to know you're telling them the truth. They want to believe you. But when you start playing games with the facts, that becomes much more difficult. And I'll give you an example. There is a company called Arbonne, and they sell primarily makeup, but I think they also do vitamins and things like that. Well, their representatives started posting this graphic on social media. And the graphic talks about how Arbonne's growth rate is so much bigger than Google and Amazon that this is really where you need to be involved. Now, at first glance, people start going, oh, well, they're growing faster than Amazon and Google. I doubt it. But the reason they post this is because they played games with the numbers. As a $1.5 million company, it's very easy to hit 100% growth rate. When you hit $3 million, that's 100% growth rate. When you're the size of Google and Amazon and you're multi-billion-dollar companies, you can be adding customers much faster than Arbonne, but still have a slower growth rate by percentage. And that's the game that they were playing with this graphic. Because on a percentage basis, oh yes, they're growing much faster than Amazon and Google. But by absolute customers, they're not even close.
Yeah, and if you look at the type of people who would be looking at this kind of thing, you'd have people that look at that are maybe gambling and trying to make a quick buck, versus people who are really good, honest business people or consumers that are immediately going to be skeptical by seeing something like that. So you wonder from a business standpoint what made them take that approach in the very first place, because you knew you're going to get both types of reactions, probably more on the skeptical side.
I would think so. And, there's a big commercial campaign right now being done by Volkswagen where they are actually making fun of themselves for not being authentic. And if you remember a while back, Volkswagen got caught up in a scandal where they had rigged the emissions so that the cars were testing as being better on emissions than they really were. Well, Volkswagen just launched their electric VW microbus. And the start of their new commercial has somebody listening to the news report of this scandal. And the story of the commercial is that gave them the idea for the electric VW microbus. So what Volkswagen is doing is, I mean, they're not just poking fun at themselves. They're really coming forward and go, okay, you know what? We learned our lesson. This is what we're doing. This is who we are. And they're trying to come back from that scandal with this commercial that pokes fun at the fact of what they had done.
Yeah, it is a clever way to turn things around. And before that happened, I mean, Volkswagen did have a pretty good name for themselves. Back to the days when we were young, when all we had was a bunch of Beetles running around, but they've done a lot of good as far as motor vehicles over the years too. So I still love driving the Beetle up. Keep the motors in the back and the trunks in front of you.
So, I mean, my point is, companies of all sizes right now are sort of learning lessons when it comes to authenticity. But the bottom line of it is it's easier to be authentic than it is to try to get authenticity back. I mean, I don't know if Arbonne will ever get credibility after something like this. Volkswagen is trying to get their credibility back. But what's really more important is not blowing that credibility in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of articles out there about building an authentic brand, and they talk a lot about honesty and integrity and that kind of stuff. One article that was kind of interesting to me, the point number 1 out of 5 was taking time to build relationships. And it basically talks about trust taking time, just like it does in networking or anything else. And it talks about growing your story, finding your place in the community, demonstrating to your customers that you're in this as a partner with them, not just trying to sell to them. And it talks about other things like being consistent, which obviously you got to have a consistent brand story and that kind of thing. Conversation. Authentic brands just don't talk about themselves and broadcast the messages. They listen and engage. And obviously with today's social market and so on and so forth, they say 83% of consumers say they like it when a brand responds to them on social media. So, I mean, that's a great new advantage of this modern technology that we have, is to have some type of a program to do that. And the other things they talk about is, the old common thing, staying true to your values and being honest and transparent. But having the conversation, I think, is a really, really good thing to do. And that's a pretty neat strategy.
Yeah, having conversations with your clients is a big plus. And you mentioned, people are now expecting you to get back to them on social media. If you have a Facebook business page, it allows your customers to contact you on Facebook Messenger. Facebook actually tracks how long it takes you to get back to people and posts that on your business page, what the average contact time is.
Yeah, so if you can hold to that.
Yeah, I mean, when our customers started contacting us through Facebook, we were completely unprepared for it. We used Facebook to promote, but we weren't really using Facebook Messenger. Immediately, I had to switch all of the settings on our apps so that I was getting notifications when these messages came through, because otherwise they'd be sitting there for days and we wouldn't even notice. So you do need to actually adapt to what your customers want. In the old days, it used to be a phone number. You wanted to reach a company, you called them. Now there are a whole mess of major tech companies, Facebook, Google. Trying to find a phone number for these guys is impossible. They want you to email or contact them through forms. Of course, the question is, how quickly do they respond to those? But now millennials want to be able to text you, to contact you through Facebook Messenger. So you have to adapt to what your clients actually want you to do and still stay true to your core, to your message, and be authentic about it. It used to be said the medium is the message. Now your message has to rise above many media and be able to be talked about across them.
Again, you have to look at the demographics of the people that you're serving. I mean, if you're serving people who are, a little bit older than millennials and so on and so forth, then obviously you can use a little bit more traditional things. But the millennials, they're all by themselves as far as a different way to do things. It says there's an article, millennials have specific expectations for interaction with brands. And they're not alone. It says about 63% of consumers say they're highly annoyed with repeated generic advertising messages. And some of the stats say that 55% of millennials who own smartphones expect brands to have an app or mobile-friendly website. And before making a purchase, 52% consider the brand's use of technology. 39% say they are loyal to brands whose use of technology is up to date. And 47% report that social media has helped introduce them to new brands. So it's really, really important to be up to snuff as far as using all this technology to your favor, because that's where people are going. And the bottom line is, if you're not doing as well as your competitor is, chances are you're going to lose out.
Yes. And it's very funny with all of this talk about how important authenticity is to millennials, because millennials themselves are not terribly authentic. And you see this because they've done surveys of millennials, and millennials say, they don't want to buy things. They want experiences. They want to go places. They want to travel around. And all of the surveys are pretty clear about that. But when you actually look at the data of what millennials are doing, what they're buying, where they're spending their money, they're not going anywhere. They're ordering food to come into the house. They're streaming movies into the house, and they don't do these experiences. So the generation has sort of created this image that in itself is not authentic.
Yeah, and technology itself the internet is really nothing more than a whole lot of ways to retrieve information about different things. And one of the lines that really, to me, makes a whole lot of sense, millennials aren't buying, they're searching. They love hanging out on their social media, looking at this and looking that, and they're just looking for different things here and there that they might want to do. And I would imagine that impulse hits them even more that way. So they're not buying what things that you hope they're going to buy. They're just searching around, and if you hit them properly, then you might have a shot at them. So that's something you got to keep in mind.
And the changing trends, though, allow you to be even more true to yourself than previously, if you can manage the technology to help you do it. And a great example of this is restaurants. There's a new trend now that restaurants are opening up, but they're not serving people. The restaurateurs are opening up, cooking the food that they want to cook. And there's maybe one or two tables in the place, but it's all geared toward